What's going on, y'all? Today's guest is Wesley David. Wesley is a singer-songwriter based in Los Angeles, California, originally from Pennsylvania. And in 2020, very recently, at the time of this recording, he released a self-released album, his debut album. Before that, he played in bands and played with in other different types of projects. But the album's called Never Late, Then Better. It's his, as I mentioned, his debut album. He's experimented with this album with a few different advertising strategies, such as Billboard, hiring a publicist, and much more, which we get into in this conversation. Also, before the pandemic, besides playing his original music, as I mentioned, Wesley was playing in bands, and he was also consistently playing in piano bars. So he was really involved in that piano bar scene, and not just playing the traditional piano bars, but also playing at like biker bars and creating basically a piano bar vibe and at non-traditional venues. So we get a little bit into that in this episode as well. And it's a strategy you can use to build a tour, plan a tour, right? If that's something that you want to get into. Also in this conversation, we talk about different marketing strategies, how COVID has affected him and his music career, and how he's pivoted with his career, pros and cons with different marketing strategies, his experience playing piano bars, touring, choosing the right social media platforms for you. These days, there's many more choices besides the popular mainstream choices such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, right? There's many more options on social media platforms. So we get a little bit into that. We even talk a little bit cryptocurrency, and just a disclaimer here, we're complete total rookies that we're still learning how these platforms work. Since then I've experimented a little bit more, and I've taken more of a dive into cryptocurrency and mainly Bitcoin and Ethereum being the main ones there. But like I said, we're still total rookies, so don't judge us based on this conversation. And this was really fun. I really had a good time talking to Wesley. We have a lot of similar interests. Kind of treaded the line of politics a little bit. I was trying to be mindful and careful of all the listeners, even though last week with Allison, we totally went way over that political line, which was also a really fun conversation. But this was really fun. Wesley's had a really cool journey. I'm going to share some links about his journey with Jehovah's Witnesses before, but we didn't really dive too deep into that because I felt like he had a really good podcast episode already where he shared that story and basically growing up in part of a cult, which is really interesting. I've learned a lot from that episode. So I'll share that in the show notes for this one. And you'll be able to find those show notes at makingitchrisg.com/podcast/126 for episode number 126. I'll also include a link to Wesley David's website, which is wesleydavidmusic.com. And thank you all so much for listening, for all the support over the years, and for all the ratings and reviews. And speaking of ratings and reviews, if you can take a quick moment, stop by Apple Podcasts, leave a quick rating, 5 stars, hopefully, if we earned it. And just if you take less than 10 seconds to leave a couple words, it can be literally just this podcast rocks. It could be literally just an emoji, or if you want to elaborate a little bit more, I will definitely really appreciate that. And we'll read those out loud on the podcast and offer a cool little giveaway as well. So thank you all so much for listening and for all the support. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation with the amazing Wesley David.
Live the life you love.
How's it going? You're a musician. You're based in LA, where we have a pandemic. Everything LA is locked down. How has this all affected you? And then, like, releasing an album even during a pandemic, you released the album Never Late Then Better. How has that whole experience been like?
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. It's been, in a way, it was a long time in coming, and in a way, it was a distraction from the pandemic. And the pandemic, once I got over the shock, just sort of accelerated my schedule. I had already, I'd been in bands for many years, and I did the whole LA thing with Delusions of Grandeur, which I still have, of course. But I moved out here, and I was in and out of original bands. I was playing drums in a band, eventually, I'm in my 30s, and I said to myself, I have to go back to my roots somehow, and I have to start writing songs again. I have to change what I'm doing, because I was just playing, songs that I love, but for the most part, original music of mine that I wrote a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And so I had in my mind that I had just a feeling coming up that I needed to really reinvent and do something different. And so I was planning on it, but then the pandemic happened, and I was out of work because I'm a working musician. And it was just like the perfect storm of time off and boredom and opportunity to do something new. So that's sort of how it came about.
Because that's the one good thing out of it, right? Because a lot of people got a lot of big projects done, a lot of books were coming out, and new shows, new albums, a lot of new music. So maybe from a creative standpoint, maybe it was a little bit of a good thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. It was you know, I'm the kind of person, I wonder if anybody or yourself, Chris, can relate to this. I'm like, I have I this can't be healthy, but I have like a mode where I'm either doing everything or a mode where I'm doing nothing. So
Sounds familiar.
I shifted. Okay, cool. I'm not the only one. Yeah, no, I shifted into that, you know, furious engagement mode, and it was a distraction because the pandemic was lonely, and I had family who moved away actually, you know, just sort of at the beginning of it, who used to live around here, and yeah, you know, we were under quarantine. It was an excuse to do this thing, and also, you know, kind of a welcome diversion from what was happening too, you know.
Mm-hmm. Did they move away because of all the restrictions and the lockdowns in California, or was that a plan to like leave regardless?
It was sort of planned. It was actually my sister and her husband, who I'm really close to. They lived in Orange County, and she got a teaching job in Texas. Okay. And so at the very end of May, actually the very beginning of June, they moved out. So they were sort of planning on it, but she wasn't sure where she was going to work. Mm-hmm. But anyway, long story short, yeah, they moved, and I had a couple of buddies who moved also, who were here locally. It seemed like everyone but me was smart, or somehow they read the tea leaves, and they were like, oh, I'm getting the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah, I think LA, I saw this article. I think LA is the #1 city that people are leaving from currently. Yeah. And then out of all places, like Sarasota, Florida, I've ever been to Florida, but Sarasota is kind of like, so we have this joke. South Florida is like Fort Lauderdale, Miami, West Palm. And we always say that's where all the old people live. And then in Sarasota, Fort Myers, Naples area, that's where the old people's parents live. That's even older.
How old are they? That's my question about that.
Yeah, but Sarasota, Florida is where most people, or it's the second biggest city where people are moving to, from all the cities they're leaving from, like from LA, New York, and Portland. Yeah, but yeah, maybe there's something about Sarasota I don't know about.
Right? Don't you guys have very low income tax in Florida? Is that right?
No state income tax.
No state income tax.
Thanks to the mouse.
That's nice. Wow.
Yeah. One of the good things that Disney brings.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So what has it been like marketing an album during a pandemic? Like, what do you do to promote an album?
Well, I did at least one smart thing and then a couple of really foolish things. I was lucky to have some savings. And the smart thing first is that I hired a PR person who's very well known in the field, Angela Master Giacomo from Muddy Paw PR.
Yeah, she's on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, she's great. Super smart, and I'd never done this before, so I mean that was helpful in terms of getting some early exposure for what I was doing. And I was also lucky enough to get a piece in Long Beach Post here in Long Beach, and it was like a feature about my background. I have a very religious background, and so that was cool too. That was kind of the smart side. The dumb side, I took out billboards on the highway.
Like the digital billboards, or like actual like?
Oh no, actual billboards, like the big Johns.
Okay.
I took out a couple in California and 2 near Philadelphia, where my dad's family live, and where I was for a little bit in the summer. And the backstory of that is, so people hearing it think I'm like a Luddite or against technology, or think I'm crazy for doing such a thing. In Piano Bar, we've done billboards. A casino did some billboards for us. Mm-hmm. So I was sort of used to it. And then they were like super cheap because of the coronavirus. So like there was just like empty billboards on the highway. I was like, oh shit, I want to have my own billboard. That'd be fun. Yeah. So yeah, I thought it'd be a cool thing to do, like live streaming in front of, and didn't work out perfectly, but it's kind of a good story. And I do have a song coming out, which I was able to shoot in front of the billboard, which looks pretty cool. So
yeah, you got something out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have a lot of music business students and other musicians that listen to the podcast. That's majority of the audience. So if it's all right, is it all right? I mean, besides the PR, but is it all right if I ask like how much billboards cost and like what the whole process is of getting a billboard and getting it actually like printed out and the design and everything?
Yeah, sure. The cost in California, each one only cost about $500
Oh wow.
for a month.
Wow.
Normally it's a lot more than that.
Okay.
And then in Pennsylvania, the one was a little less than that, and the other was closer to $1,000.
Okay.
So if anybody freaks out, it's a whole month of exposure basically. Two of them, I realized in retrospect, two of them were in really good spots, and then two of them were in like you couldn't really see it too good. So it was definitely a learning experience, but it's not, I'm thinking about doing it next year, maybe one, and doing it for like a live streaming thing and like some kind of contest or some way to make it fun. I do think I'm sort of answering your question the long way around, but I do think it's important. Just my intuition is that obviously digital social media, that is number one without question. Right. However, I think you ignore, what's like thought of as old media, but I think you can ignore that at your peril if you're trying to get stuff out there, because even just a flyer, flyers like for bars where they have bands, or your local college campus, or freaking Starbucks, but like some way of almost standing out in, the world, which is not on the internet, I think is still useful.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
It's my intuition, but
it's good brand building. Is there any way you tracked or were able to measure the success of the billboard? Like, do you have any kind of feedback on how it went?
The short answer is no, I don't. The long answer is, I did a lot of research, and they calculate it by impressions. So like you drive by, and I the idea also came to me because I take so many road trips for piano bar like performances, like from Phoenix to LA and to Vegas and LA. So you get bored on a long trip, and you're used to just you just see billboards all the time. So they calculate it by impressions.
Got it.
So two of them had like averaging like 100,000 impressions per month, and then two of them were averaging 300,000 impressions per month. So I don't know. It's almost similar to like when you post something on Instagram, it shows you like your insights, like how many impressions did it get. That might be a lot of people just scrolling, right, and like, okay, like their unconscious mind like saw it, but they didn't really like do anything with it. Now digital, of course, you can track when somebody clicks on it.
Right.
You can't do that with a billboard, so that's the crappy part of it. But
right. But you are more likely to notice a billboard than I think an ad on Instagram or Facebook or something.
I think so.
At least the driver, hopefully.
Yeah, if you're the driver, yeah.
Hopefully. Did you do any other marketing in conjunction with that? Like, did you do any digital ads or anything else?
I did a Spotify. I did a promotion thing on Instagram where it was like a Spotify gift card giveaway, kind of gimmicky, but I also was giving away some merch, some T-shirts, and a couple of my records, which I eventually had made into a vinyl. So that was fun actually. That was probably the most useful thing as far as I can tell, because I was starting from scratch on Instagram and Twitter. So it's the process is ongoing for that, but yeah, that helped a lot as far as engagement and talking about bands and music and getting people to sign up for my email list. So that actually seemed to be pretty effective.
Nice. What do you mean by starting from scratch? Like, were you starting new accounts, or were you gone for a while?
No, I started brand new accounts for this, and started from zero earlier in 2020. So yeah, and I had a Facebook. I have a Facebook for piano stuff.
Okay.
But anyway, this is long story short. I don't have a Facebook for this project, and I'm keeping it that way for now, as I'm not a huge fan of the Mark Zuckerberg Corporation and a lot of their shenanigans.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you were not using social media before, and like and why you're not using Facebook, or are you using other platforms? Because these days, especially the times we're in right now, there's so many people jumping to other platforms now. Like, have you looked at other platforms and experiment with them?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel I'm trying to grow. I've experimented with TikTok and Twitch. I'm not 100% sold on those yet as far as what I'm trying to do, but YouTube definitely. So Twitter, a place for all my ramblings and thoughts, crazy thoughts, and then Instagram, which I like, and then YouTube are my main ones.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I'm thinking about starting an account at, I don't know if you've heard of this a website called Locals. It's owned by this guy,
No,
Dave Rubin. It's kind of like a
really,
page.
Dave Rubin? Oh,
Yeah.
impressive.
It's kind of like a Patreon, but it is paid also. So everyone that is a creator on Locals like has to have a minimum of like $2 a month. And they kind of do that to filter out all the junk, right? Because like I don't know if there's like political reasons why you haven't been on social media, but we can definitely get into that. But um, I know a lot of people are leaving those platforms because of all of the censorship that's happening, and they're going to other places.
Yeah.
And like what other people are saying, like, oh yeah, you're just going to go to the places where all the racists are and the pedophiles and all that. And Dave Rubin's purposely making it a paid thing to where you filter all the junk out. So it's like literally just like-minded people wanting to have conversations about certain topics, and like musicians are starting to go there, YouTubers are starting to go there and putting their content on Locals instead of YouTube or instead of Patreon. So it's I'm gonna experiment with it because I feel like it's a really cool platform. I started following Tulsi Gabbard on there.
Oh, sweet. I like Tulsi Gabbard. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. No, I haven't heard of that, but I'll have to check that out for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned piano bars a few times. Tell me about that experience. Like, how long have you been playing in
Oh,
piano bars? How many piano bars do you play in? Do you tour around different piano bars? Like, what does that whole circuit look like?
it's a shit show. It's a fun shit show. Yeah, no, I went to school for music, and I had moved out to Arizona, and I sort of fell into it. I met some people at one night. We went to a bar in Tempe, which is near ASU, and I wasn't, a very good. I'm not a very good piano player now, but anyway. I was much worse then, but I was good guitar player, and the guy I was sitting with like, oh, you're a musician, you should try this, and I was like, maybe I should try this. This seems fun. And so I got an audition, and eventually I got into a different piano bar, and I started learning in a more serious way how to play piano, and like the style there for like boogie woogie and rock and roll and blues and the kind of old styles of piano for that music. And I've been doing it ever since for about 10 years, and it's definitely paid the bills. And it's kind of so many experiences. I've played thousands of piano shows. I've really like been balls to the wall with it. I was a touring musician with it for back and forth between Vegas and LA and Phoenix and back. And I've played in a lot of other parts of the country. I've played in Ireland.
Oh, cool.
And it's I'm not answering your question. I mean, it's a good time. It's like a fun thing. It's almost like karaoke meets music theater is how I kind of see piano bar. But it definitely scratched a lot of my best friends I've met on the road or in shows. And it scratched an itch to be a performing like musician and play and I don't know. I think it scratches the itch of my music theater side, and also being like a big ham. So, it's like it's a fun way to make a living for sure. It's a fun job for a musician. It's a really good musician job, I'd say.
Yeah, and like how often do you play? Like, do you play several times a week, or I guess before pandemic, right?
before the pandemic, I was playing on average just weekends.
Okay.
But it depends on the month. In Arizona, it's somewhat in California too. It's seasonal. Like the hot months a little less, and then the 6 months of the year, usually October through the end of March. It's very beautiful, including in Vegas. So that's like the full on season. So there'll be months like October, or December, or March where I play, like 5 nights a week, and then there are months in the dead of summer where you play like handful of times a month depending on what's happening. So so it kind of varies, but I estimated the other day, I was trying to estimate when I first started doing it in Arizona. I was playing with a friend who I met, and we took the show to countless sports bars, Irish pubs, like dive bars, biker bars. We became friends with all these bikers in Phoenix.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, they're a gnarly bunch, but I mean, they love it. They love like, the old stuff and oldies and blues and AC/DC and Guns N' Roses and that kind of thing, like kind of meat and potatoes rock and roll.
Nice. So these are mostly covers you're playing. So what I'm imagining is I'm used to live in New Orleans, and I'm imagining like places like Patos. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, okay, so awesome.
Yeah, it's just like that. Yeah.
And is
those
this
guys those guys are really good. Really,
well, they're great entertainers. When you say like the theatrical part, they're really like entertaining. And have you been able to, I guess, gain anything out of that and bring that to your original shows?
Yeah, I think so to an extent. I think that since when I started playing, in the last couple of versions of the band I was in, I definitely felt more and more confident, able to like take more chances, and just I think I've lost any any sense of shame from dueling pianos. It's very important to have shame in one's life. But yeah, no, I think it made me more confident, and I'm curious. I can't wait to go play the songs on this album that I wrote, because I kind of want to do some spoken word and storytelling, and talk about, play the songs and talk about them. And I'm optimistic that I think that the experience I got from Piano Bar and just so many performances have kind of seasoned me a little bit. Whereas if I was just starting out and had never really played much and was just starting out with pretty like personal songs and stories, then it may be kind of nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
You've mentioned like touring a little bit, doing like the Piano Bar scene, or even like going to other places, and sound like you were just setting it up in biker bars that usually don't have like a regular night of Piano Bar. Is this something you could implement with touring for your original music? Because I'm assuming that probably for a musician starting out, I'm sure like the tips and whatever you get paid doing the piano bars pays probably better than playing original music when you first start touring. Is this something you could, I guess, weave into like touring for original music to help like make some money while you're on the road?
That's an excellent question. I'm not sure. I'm envisioning my 2021 as, I almost consider myself semi-retired from the grind of like 10 years of literally constant travel with piano stuff. So I'm looking at it like that's still a source of income for me, but I might get back into music teaching also a little bit to try to balance it out, because that's something you can do too on the road these days through Zoom and stuff like that. So I'm not 100% sure, but I'm hoping I can make it all work, basically, is to answer your question. And yeah, definitely, original musicians, it is a challenge. It's a challenge until you get to a certain threshold. I'm at the time of this recording, I'm nowhere near that threshold. I look forward to hopefully getting to that threshold, but it is tough. The streaming payouts are not enough unless you get to that relatively high threshold.
Right.
And then it's kind of about selling merch, and everyone's trying to sell you their t-shirt. Even the kid with less followers than me on Instagram, it's like, oh, I got my t-shirt made, please buy my t-shirt. Like, okay, we get it. Like we're all doing it, so it's tough. That part is a challenge for sure. And I hope that, I would love to see changes in the industry. Not trying to go down a rabbit hole of this, but I would love to see changes in the industry and the way the internet even functions, to make it so that more creators, not necessarily just musicians, but more creators can make money with the internet and with apps and with putting out contents, so that there would be just a more equitable like distribution of income.
So I am going to go down rabbit hole, because that's a question I'd like to ask. What are some of those changes that you like to see happen?
Sorry. Well, to start with, it would be phenomenal if we used something akin to blockchain or Bitcoin for payouts. There's a shout out there to anybody in your audience who's all about sound money, and if anybody's into that stuff, cryptocurrency, or
Ethereum.
Or Ethereum, yes, Ethereum. Hell yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I've got into it. I think, maybe not whether it's those technologies or a future blockchain, but something along those lines where there was just a better distribution system to where maybe when you put something out there, you can earn a little bit of maybe like, a portion of a token, like on a blockchain, for example, which of course can be used as money.
Right.
And likewise, when you, whether it's music or just other content on the internet, you would have like a micro payments. It's what we already have right now with Spotify. It's just that it needs to be scaled better.
Right.
So, if I visit the New York Times or something like that, instead of having to, for 100 different websites, instead of having to make a separate password and subscription and get their email list and do 10 different things, it'd be incredible if they could just take my micropayment. Then they get revenue. And the big winners, like the big fish, like New York Times, will do very well. But even the small fish, even mom and pop, like websites or creators or content makers, I think would have a better chance to make like a middle class living. Even podcast people, anybody who's making good content, even if it's not going to the moon, you would still have a chance to earn legitimate income based on a micropayment system which was scaled.
Right.
I definitely see blockchain as the future for that, whether or not that's Bitcoin or another blockchain, maybe something else. But I think a system like that, basically it's what we're doing with Spotify. It's just that it could be better. The payouts could be more reasonable and better for creators.
I wonder if that would also help make the content just better, because there's a lot of junk out there, right? So if you're actually paying for the content, even if it's like just micropayments for the content, you're not going to pay for something that is just a bunch of junk. So you're only going to pay for good quality, or things that you consider good quality. So I wonder if that will force creators and writers to just put out better content as well.
I think so. I do think there's a value to paying for something. It's almost against the grain of how like the internet works right now, and the allure of everything being free. Yeah. But I mean, in reality, first of all, paying like 1/100th of a penny for something is not too much to ask for most people. It is really about, it's funny. It's like I'm a quasi libertarian, so it's kind of libertarian. And I guess in a way, somebody have to correct me, it's almost a little bit socialist also, because socializing, a payment system, the way that any other thing works, where you share the cost, instead of one person paying $1 million, if 1 million people pay $1, then that's the joke. That's a joke we use at piano bars when we're trying to sleazily get more money from people. They probably do this at Pat O'Brien's, where you're trying to make more for like Don't Stop Believing. And you're like, all right, you guys, we don't need one rich ass dude with $100. We just need you 99 of your drunk friends with $1. And then we're gonna rock this song. It's a whole scam to make more money at piano bars.
Yeah, it's funny, but I guess it wouldn't be socialism, because you still have the choice to make a micropayment. Because in socialism you don't have the choice. It's just it's
true.
Taken from you.
That is true. Yeah.
We're inching towards that political rabbit hole. But another thing I was going to ask is, you mentioned playing like in bands, and now you have your solo album out. Is this your first solo album, or like how many? Yeah.
First solo album. Yeah, first album. Even with the bands, we never got to the recording stage.
Got it.
Just sad.
Did you ever play out like shows and tour with the bands at all, or regionally?
I played with the bands. The two I was playing drums with, we did a handful of shows, and the shows were good. And the artists, I was just playing drums for them. I'm a good, not great drummer. Drums were my first instrument and my first love as a kid. I played a handful of shows with those artists. They already had recordings, so I didn't record with them. And then the original bands for my music, I was playing guitar, and we did a bunch of shows, but we didn't record. So yeah, this is the first. I've recorded a lot in my life, but this is my first like full album, full thing, like really putting out with like a serious intention to it.
How long have you been writing?
Man, since I was 12 or 13, in that range, when I first started playing drums, and was in a church band with friends that we made up. And my buddy, to give a complicated answer, my buddy, who I'm still friends with, at age 13, was a great guitar player, and kind of like sucked me into the world of classic rock and the Beatles and the Who and stuff like that. And so we just hatched the idea that I'd play drums. And so I coerced my dad to get me a drum set.
Nice.
And then pretty much from there, I was a creative kid, and was kind of a loner a lot too. So I started humming to myself and then writing songs. went from there.
What's your kind of your musician journey, like from starting playing music at, was it 12, 13, and then to where you are now? Like, what was the progression to finally releasing your first solo album?
Wow, that's
Long journey.
yeah, long journey. Yeah. I fell in love with so I'm in my mid 30s. I fell in love with 90s music. Well, I fell in love with classic rock and the Who and Zeppelin, all the kind of meat and potatoes rock and roll. Nice. And with my friend, and then also right about the same time, also like modern rock on the radio. So this is the mid 90s, and alternative rock and eventually grunge and some hip hop and stuff like that. So the 90s are my jam and my pigeonhole.
Same here.
Nice. Love the 90s, man. It's awesome. I was lucky to have parents, especially my dad, who encouraged me, and playing with my friends, and then learning guitar, and then playing in bands like church, friends from church, with my sister who sang. Okay. If she ever watches this, she told me to leave her the hell out of these discussions, but that was a long time ago.
You dragged her in.
But no, she was good, and the bands were not bad, and they were fun. And writing music was in my teens. My favorite bands, the alt rock bands and the classic rock stuff, and that was my escape in a way from kind of being bored at church a lot. That's a whole other part of the conversation. So we were very religious, and I was a Christian missionary. I did Christian missionary work, what Jehovah's Witnesses call missionary work in their locality or county. And so a lot of my time was spent doing that and in church. And so music was, 90s music and rock was like an alternate identity for me, and like another just place to be, like, emotionally. And then writing music also was a real escape and a real just kind of like way I could have this identity that felt like it was mine. And it was amazing. And so it went from there, and eventually my life changed a lot. And eventually I went to college. So I was self-taught until my late teens. I took some vocal lessons, and I loved it. And so I did that for the most part in college, when I went to school eventually for music. And I studied classical music, actually voice and composition. And then I went to Hampshire College. I went to Bucks County Community College for a year in Pennsylvania, actually. Wonderful school. Yeah. Love anybody watching, kids at home, go to community college. If you're even a little short on funds and you're on the fence, go to community college, get your education started, stay in school, kids. Okay. Then I went to Hampshire College, which is in Massachusetts. And I went there for 3 years and got my degree.
Awesome. I'll advocate for the community college too, as a professor. I guess not fellow professor, but as a professor.
Awesome. Nice.
I have to advocate for college.
Nice. Yeah. Chris, do you teach? I apologize. Did you work for a music label? And I was trying to do my homework. Did I hear that in the Shane Hazel podcast that?
No, I used to work for Live Nation and for AEG. Okay. So I was on the promoter side most of my career. Got it. Okay. And then I dabbled in some artist management here and there. I had a mentor who I need to get on the podcast, Randy Dees. He hates having a microphone in front of him or doing public speaking, but he has so many great stories. He used to manage Creed. So he has lots of stories from Creed, probably lots of nightmare stories. He managed Seven Dust, Alter Bridge, Paramore. Nice. So a lot of those rock bands. And so he was my mentor. We co-managed an artist together for a little while. And then I just took a break. That's when I went into teaching. I started teaching at Full Sail, started teaching at UCF, FIU.
Fantastic.
So kind of a little bit my journey.
Very nice. Awesome. That's good stuff. That's awesome to hear. Yeah. That's cool. I'll take a class with you one day, man.
Do it anytime. I'll invite you in for to come listen and be a guest speaker maybe.
That'll be fun. Yeah. That'd be awesome.
For since you've been to college and you're advocating for it, knowing what you know today, right? So if there's a musician out there or a music business student that's listening, what would you suggest they take? Are there any classes that you feel really helped you, or any classes you wish you've taken?
Music theory, for sure. Take the music theory. Do you let me boringly ask you, do you mean for musicians specifically, or for people looking to get into the music business at the business side?
Let's do musicians, since you're coming from a musician standpoint.
Okay.
And like a musician that is obviously wanting to, because you're kind of on a business standpoint as well, because you're building your own solo career. So someone that's in a similar boat as you? Someone that's a songwriter that probably needs to know the business side, but also needs to know the music side.
My sense is that a well-rounded music education would be a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. So column A, definitely the music side, to however far you want to take that. I mean, you can take, music theory and jazz theory, and you can really go pretty far with that stuff. I also had some wonderful classes on African music, and
Cool.
as I'll be honest, as a white kid listening to rock and roll, I was not, and also because we were so religious, I wasn't very exposed to a lot of hip hop and other kind of other Afrological forms of music. So wonderful classes I had too on all kinds of African music and its origins, and so I feel like I got a well-rounded music education. I actually didn't have many classes in terms of the business side of things. I don't think I had any classes as far as the business side of things, and that would have been good had they been offered at Hampshire College. But definitely, actually, I had auditioned for Berkeley. I vaguely remember going to Berkeley twice in Boston and trying to get in, and I did not. But I know they teach a lot of that there. So yeah, I think if you can take classes on even just frankly, even just a basic economics class in college, even if you're more on the artistic side. I'm so out of touch these days. I don't know what's normal, but I think that becoming a well-rounded person is valuable. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you see, I do see some 18-year-olds on Twitter. I get the sense that they're not thinking about becoming as kind of broad as maybe they could be, is my old person sense now. So, I mean, yeah, I do think like learning all that stuff is valuable, and just learning the basics of economics and, how the economy works, and just getting a good understanding. The thing that you're strong at, go ahead and love the shit out of that. Then the thing that you don't like, it makes you, if you can get through it, it makes you a better person to try to get into that area of what you don't want to listen to or don't want to learn about. Like at least just, wade into the waters. And I think it helps you have more perspective on life and what to do with yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, since you mentioned economics, I've taken a couple of economics classes, and for those that are listening that want to learn more about how the economy works, and you should, instead of your basic micro and macroeconomics class, pick up Ludwig van Mises and read his books.
Yes.
And then some really good economics
Yes.
right
there. The Austrian economics.
Yes.
Yeah.
and he goes through all the basics. Anything you'll learn in micro and macroeconomics, he goes through all that. He goes through all that and breaks it down even like more simple.
I'm writing this all down in my mental notes. Yeah, I know some of that stuff, and I'm interested in it, but it's on my agenda. I was into I'm not sure how much of your audience is kind of on that side of things, but I was part of the libertarian movement briefly in Arizona. I was campaigning for my local district, actually not for myself, but for somebody else. And I was part of the Ron Paul campaign briefly in Arizona. Yeah. Awesome. Love Ron Paul. Yeah. And I've leaned a little bit less from being kind of like a hardcore libertarian into more kind of a liberal libertarian at this point in my life, but
a classic liberal.
I'd say so. Yeah. And I think that, I think definitely there's a lot of principles. We're in a weird time because of the pandemic and all the stimulus money, which is short term is like drugs for the economy. And then long term, short term it's probably life saving, and Biden's plan at the time of this recording is going to be should be helpful. No matter what the number is, but long term you do wonder what the consequences will be of all of our spending. So so to bore people, but to get an understanding of like sound money and sound money principles versus fiat money, and hedging when possible, if you have savings account, where to put money or invest. That's important for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's a good thing for the individuals and small businesses, like right now, like in the short term. But what is going to happen long term? Like I'm worried with all these giant spending bills that are going through. Like every time one of those goes through, like since you spoke about Bitcoin, you just need to like watch Bitcoin every time it gets approved. Like it just jumps up like thousands of dollars, and because people are like converting their money, because like, is the dollar going to be worth anything?
Right.
Like, I don't know, that's why I like the idea, what you brought up in the beginning, like having alternative like revenue streams of ways to make money off of content, like, having micropayments through Bitcoin, Ethereum, or whatever cryptocurrency is the most stable when that time comes. But yeah, I'm taking half of that money that if it gets approved, which I'm assuming it will be, I'm taking half that money, I'm converting it immediately into probably Ethereum.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, Ethereum is going to be like the what do they say? Almost like the gas of the future. If Bitcoin is the I'm messing this analogy up. Bitcoin is more the store of value, and Ethereum might be like the thing we really use as far as the infrastructure for contracts and blockchain and all that interesting technology. So yeah, man, I'm right there with you for sure. I think it's important. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I was going to ask something I totally blanked. So what happened after you?
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Hopefully your editing guy can edit that out.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
When you finished college, like what did that journey look like from there on? Like what were you doing in between? So you got a music degree, right? And what were you doing with that degree? Did that help create any kind of career for you, or is that kind of just what helped you get into these bands that you played in and eventually into the piano bar scene? Like what was that gap like in between there?
I was teaching vocal and piano lessons. So I was teaching in Massachusetts. I had the chance to teach for about a year. Actually, my senior year, I taught at a school for developmentally disabled young adults. It's called BHMA, which was right down the street from Hampshire College.
Okay,
that was a wonderful experience, and got my feet wet teaching, and amazing kids, just amazing young adults. With there's a kid who's blind and a piano player, and best piano player you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah,
unbelievable piano player, and was full on blind, incredible.
Awesome.
Yeah,
what is with blind people being amazing at piano? I mean.
Yeah, seriously,
like two of the best of all time. Like,
yeah. No, it's amazing. Like something about when you lose one sense, maybe the others are
hides the others.
Heightened, yeah, something like that. Yeah, but yeah. So that was my getting my feet wet, and then when I moved to Arizona, I was teaching for the better part of a couple of years, also voice and piano lessons. And the degree, first of all, the degree helped me to get some teaching positions at studios, at local like privately owned studios.
Cool. And that's a bachelor's degree, right? So what a bachelor's, because I have a lot of students that want to teach. I guess what kind of teaching opportunities are there with a bachelor's? Because you can't teach at a university level yet.
No, you have to have, at least I haven't checked this since Arizona, but you have to have a master's degree to teach at most university levels. I'm not sure about like middle school. You'd have to maybe you'd know about this than I do, but
you just need it's different from state to state, but you just need a teaching certificate. That's all you need to pay for. It's basically getting into the libertarian stuff. You basically have to pay the state $100 and send them your transcript, and that's it. And you get your teaching certificate. That's all the only requirements. I think they just do a background check, and that's it. It's just a way for them to cash in some money.
Let us save the $100 for.
Yeah, right.
That's funny.
Just apply to a school and just send in your resume and your transcript there.
Yeah. That's just a scam. That's what I think.
Yeah.
But the degree definitely is like it's like having a union card basically. So you can, it's like you're in the union. It's social proof too by having the degree.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I was able to teach. So I was able to at least teach at a couple of private music studios, and then I just started doing it on my own also with Craigslist. I got hired by Take Lessons, takelessons.com.
Okay.
I'm not sure how active they are. I remember those years ago, but they'll hire you and screen you, and then it's almost like an Uber for teachers, where like you go through their system, and prospective students find you on their website, and then you can go teach and make some money. So that wasn't bad. I was doing that, and then I was also playing at the piano bar and kind of worked that in. But yeah, teaching, especially student vocal lessons, I enjoy. And I might go back to that one day too.
And when you're teaching, how do you promote that? Do you promote that? You said Craigslist. Are there any other like freelance platforms like Fiverr or Freelancer or anything that you've looked into, or that give where we can get lessons? I don't even know if you can get lessons on Fiverr, but you can get like everything these days there.
You can get everything on Fiverr. That's very true. Yeah, I haven't done it before the pandemic. I was getting some flyers made. I was going to put some flyers local, like, libraries and cafes and stuff and churches, but no, I haven't done it during the pandemic. So I would probably, at the point where I go back to, maybe back to Craigslist, where everything I found everything in my life.
Yeah, or Nextdoor. Have you looked into that?
Nextdoor. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nextdoor's a cool app.
People use. Yep, I do like Nextdoor also. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the few social media platforms I don't know if it would be social media. I guess in a way it is.
Kind of is. Yeah. I'm on the Nextdoor for Long Beach, and it's nice.
Yeah, I like it.
It's like a swap meet also for junk.
Yeah. So what's the plans now? Like, you have your first album out. You've experimented with marketing, which is great. I guess before I jump in, what's on next? Like, speaking of marketing, most artists that I've encountered, like most independent artists, tend to spend all this time, energy, and money in recording the album, but then they don't have any money left to really market the album. They might spend like $500 on a Facebook ad, and that's about it. And that's all their marketing.
Right.
Like, what made you decide to spend that much money on marketing, and did you already like have a plan for that? Did you save up for that?
It did save up for that. I was lucky to have, the piano bar thing started out shock jock, just playing for bikers, and then slowly but surely got more successful and got better and better opportunities, to where the last few years I was able to pay down some debt. And I sometimes think that I let that distract me from, getting back into original music. But I was paying down student debt and credit card debt, and I was building a little bit of savings also. So I was very fortunate to have some of that to fall back on for this year. And also I got into cryptocurrency a little bit, not the earliest, but like towards the end of 2019, actually, is when the prices were low. So
nice, yeah.
I was pretty lucky as far as that goes. So yeah, I did have, but that being said, I had a budget in my mind for all this stuff, from recording mostly in my apartment, to hiring PR and going from there. So yeah, I did think about it conceptually. And a funny thing I'll offer to anybody watching this or listening that is over analytical like me, and kind of like, skeptical of social media, and like wondering how to put, even if it's other content, but just put something new out there. And then you're absolutely right. It's not just about making the thing as good as possible. It is also then that, you're in the marketplace of 10 million other creators, and a fair amount of them are, tweens in their bedroom, and they're not really going to be very competitive. But then a fair amount of them are really good professionals also what they do. But, there's just so much content. There's so much music. There's such a deluge of music and content. I think on balance, that's good. It's hard to say that's a bad thing. But it is a difficult thing. It's competitive just with how much stuff is out there. So what I learned the hard way through doing this, and like having some fun by buying fucking billboards and stuff, pardon my language, is that actually, to my chagrin, social media does turn out to be like pretty much the biggest thing. And I think I was maybe hoping in a way to prove that one could dabble in it but also work around it. And unfortunately, I think I'm learning that that's not necessarily the case, or at least during the pandemic, it's not the case. I don't know. Had this been a normal year, my bread and butter is really more just playing live. Probably a lot of musicians feel that way too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But being around an audience, being able to interact or make a joke, or just being in the presence of other people is much more where I feel comfortable. So, had it been a normal year, that probably would have been by far like my first strategy. But starting at a place where you don't have any social media presence, I think if I could do this backwards, I would have focused all my efforts onto that first. Then I would have also done, then I probably would have done, something like fun, like, wow, a billboard, or like hiring PR, which set up, I'm very thankful, set up this interview. That stuff I think has value, but I do now feel that setting up at least an amateur level social media presence probably has to be the basis. I don't think you have to have, a million followers, not like that, but even just having, some workable like base to start with. So that's what I've learned, and that's tough too. It's tough when you're starting out from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the social media thing, you can build that if you have the content though, because now you have the content, right? So you could build that up pretty quickly with like video view campaigns on Instagram or on Facebook. So you're not on Facebook, but you still have access to the ad platform to run ads on your Instagram channel.
Yeah.
So I think with a video views campaign, you could build that up pretty, not quick, but if you have good quality music and you're marketing it to the right audience, you can build it up fairly quickly. Yeah, I had this idea of when you mentioned the Billboard thing and that you have the music video. If the Billboard was still up, it would have been pretty cool to like target people around the radius of the billboard with digital ads with that video.
I did. So I did that. I did that
Yeah.
the Instagram campaign I ran to do like a Spotify card giveaway, and it was actually also just about, I was giving away like merch, but it was about like, you know, tell me your favorite band or your favorite album. I changed it up. So that it was cool to get some responses on that. But yeah, I did for the most part. I ran the Instagram thing around Pennsylvania and then in California, so those are like my home bases.
Yeah.
So yeah, so hopefully I think that probably helped a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. What thought process came into hiring a publicist? Like someone that's looking into hiring a publicist for the first time, like what did you look for? What were like kind of your parameters of what was a good publicist? And did you like look at quite a few different ones? Did you interview different ones? Like what is that process like?
I looked at a few different ones, and there are some that were so prohibitively expensive. Like there were some like based out of LA and Nashville for like $20,000 a month. And yeah, I was like, wow, okay. I mean, that would have been like every penny I had to my name. So I wasn't going to do that. So I did have a budget, and so there were only a couple available kind of in my relative budget level. But it just seemed like I needed, you know, I think I realized as the year was going on and the album was coming to a close that I was like, okay, like now I'm going to transition to what am I doing with this? And I don't have, at that time I probably had 100 followers on Instagram. So, you know, it's not very many. So I was like, all right, I've got to do something and also the pandemic too. Had it been a normal year, you know, I would have probably just gotten in my car and just went and played open mics and played on the streets and just play it all the time, because that's really what I love to do. So I would have been okay to just like take my, you know, my album and get on the road and go play, and that's what I'm hoping to do in 2021 actually. But yeah, given the pandemic, I felt that I needed to do something to try to get the ball rolling.
I'm a big advocate for open mics for musicians. I'm a big comedy fan. Like I listen to, you know, Joe Rogan, Joey Diaz, and those guys, and them always talking about getting their reps in and performing in front of an audience, testing things out. And I feel like that works for musicians really well too. There's one I had on the podcast, Andrew Duhon. He's from New Orleans, and that's how he tests all his new material. And you know, he'll play a couple familiar songs and then 2 new songs, and then kind of get people's feedback from that. And you know, of course, they'll tell him like one of those 2 songs that they really liked, or they might not tell him anything. And that's kind of how he measures the success. But what would that look like going on the road playing open mics? Like what was your kind of vision for it?
My vision for it is what I'm hoping to do, I guess, depending on assuming we do in fact get a recovery this year. I'm hoping to get into my car and pack my shit up and go play a couple areas in the country where I have friends and family where I can stay, and you know, network. And so the Seattle area, Philadelphia. I'm giving the audience my master plan in case they see me next year. Philadelphia, the upstate New York area, and then Arizona and California. So those areas I've got some family where I can stay, and I'm also hoping to just you know, expenses willing, I'm hoping to just like on the routes there and in the surrounding areas play a lot of bars and open mics, and I have a friend in the UK, and I'm hoping maybe even to get out there if I can afford it at some point. Yeah, and play there for like a month and play like London open mics, which I think would be fun. So
when you figured out like the budget for your album, was some of that originally in like budgeted for touring, and now because you couldn't tour, is that kind of why you went after trying out the billboards and stuff? Or
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, basically I had a number in my mind. I worked out my budget with my savings. I thought, what can I, I'm all in on my project and my music, which is my life. But I still had to, you still have to have a number where like, okay, I have to survive. So what can I afford? And yeah, I would have that you're right. That money instead of going to PR and a few other things, probably just would have been spent on, hotels and KOAs going through America.
Yeah, that's cool.
Maybe getting a cheap ass RV or something.
Well, interesting. Okay, so now that most of that probably would have spent towards touring if there hadn't been a pandemic, but now that you actually spent it on marketing, how's that going to change your mindset for the next album? Because of course you've seen some results now, and now you kind of know what works, what you can double down on a little bit more, maybe what you can spend a little less on for your next album. Would you now spend the same on marketing and then budget in that touring in addition, or what would that look like now?
My short answer to that is I don't think I'm going to make an album this year.
Okay.
In fact, my thinking on this has changed. I feel like I'm learning all the time. I'm trying to unlearn, basically the model that I grew up with and fantasized about, which is
the old music industry.
Yeah, the old music industry model. Yeah, like a lot of bands got signed in the heyday, but only a very few like really made money. But still, the signed bands could go, like the record company would float you in advance. You'll be in debt for the rest of your life, but you can still go on tour. They'll just put you on a tour and they'll take a shot at you. So that model is, it's been way restricted now, the chance taking for the record labels now. But in my brain, I've had to unlearn that model because, now it almost seems like it's more about volume of, it's still about good content, but it's also about volume of content. So, spending a lot of time and money and just making like one thing, like an album or like one or two videos, and then here it is, and that's the end. That's the old model. The new model is really more like consistency of content. So a song, maybe a lyrics video, a green screen video, then another song. So I'm trying to see how, I feel like I think a little outside the box. So I'm trying to see how I can move into that way of doing things, but also preserve what I care about, which is I do still care about. My band releases like a new album. That is an event. I save the date. Like, so I do want to preserve that. So I'll probably do albums in the future, but for the short term, I definitely want to move more into that kind of stream of content way of doing things. It's also a little cheaper. I think it's a little cheaper to do it that way too, more piecemeal.
Yeah. What kind of content are you thinking about putting out there? Is it on mostly YouTube content? Or are you thinking about putting out singles on Spotify? What are you thinking there?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a little both. I'm gonna do some they probably can't see. I've got a crappy green screen, some lighting behind me. So some DIY videos, which have been fun to make.
Cool.
And then some pretty good like with the actual director of music videos this year.
Cool.
And then singles just direct to Spotify and Apple Music. The rest
any kind of behind the scenes content you're thinking about putting out there, or covers, or what about when it comes to that?
Yeah, I would love to put out some. I'm thinking about doing something where if people subscribe to my email list, they can get access to acoustic versions of all my songs and some of the backstories behind them. And then covers. Pardon me. I started doing, because I love the 90s. I started doing a thing on Wednesday mornings called Wednesday Morning 90s. Cool. Which is like, it's almost like piano bar style, but it's mostly just 90s music and taking 90s requests. And so it's
where do you do that?
That's on YouTube.
Okay, so you do like a YouTube live?
YouTube live, yeah. Wednesday mornings, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, that's just getting started. I'm thinking about simultaneously casting it to Instagram live maybe at the same time. But I'm trying to do a little both. I think about it from a dueling piano standpoint. And I think about my favorite bands, even like like the Beatles, for argument's sake. The Beatles were a cover band. Not a lot of people, most people think about, wow, the Beatles and Sgt. Pepper. The Beatles were a glorified bar band. The Beatles were literally a bar band for years until like they became the Beatles. So everybody gets their start somewhere, I guess.
No, yeah, I love that. I think that's an awesome idea. Yeah, and that's every Wednesday. I have to try to tune in one of these days.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love it. Man, I completely blank because I'm just like I'm trying to just listen and not think of the next question. Talking about covers, talking about marketing, talking about PR, talking about
Let's talk
touring.
more about Bitcoin, man.
I'm talking more about Bitcoin.
BTC hashtags on Twitter.
How high do you think it's going to go?
Ah,
There's some crazy numbers out there. Like I've seen 150,000 last.
I saw that too. Yeah, I think that I'll take the conservative approach.
Okay.
I think that I think by the end of 2021, we'll have some dips on the way. I'll say we're at about 50 to 60,000 by the end of 2021.
Okay.
I'll say in 5 years we're over 200K.
Wow.
That's pretty conservative actually by most kind of like the bullish estimates on it. But
Sure.
I have a close buddy. I'll give a shout out to my buddy Pete Rizzo, who was the editor of CoinDesk.
Okay.
CoinDesk, the leading industry publication for crypto, and now he works at Kraken, which is I'm not 100% sure what Kraken is, but they're big, but they're freaking big in the crypto space.
Okay.
But yeah, I learned a lot about from him. Actually, he was into it for. We went to school together. He actually went to UMass down the street, and he kept telling me about it when he got a job there, and then he eventually became editor and was going to these conferences. He was learning more and then writing about it, and he kept telling me over and over, dude, you got to take this seriously. I was like, this is like a joke. This is ridiculous. I'm not gonna waste my money on this. And then one day I kept reading about it. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I guess I'll put a couple bucks into it. And yeah, it's cool. It's like it's probably where the world is going. Just digital.
I think so too. Yeah.
Digital everything.
So I'm gonna add a quick disclaimer. So anything we'll talk about here going forward about Bitcoin and investing and everything is all educational purposes. Yes. Anyone who's listening, do your own research and hire an expert, but don't make any decisions based on anything that the two of us say. we're just podcast internet experts.
100%. Yes,
we're playing experts. But with Bitcoin, so what I always look for, right, is the consistencies. Like when I hear consistently intelligent people that like know what they're talking about stuff, that's when I start paying attention. Like one person says, "Oh, put all your money in Bitcoin." I'm like, I'm gonna wait a little bit. But I consistently, and why I mentioned Ethereum because I'm, I was all Bitcoin before too. But when I keep hearing Ethereum over and over and over again right now, and it's only sitting at like $1,000 for a coin or $1,300 right now for a coin. So I wonder if it's smart to do like a split going forward. Like if you have $100 to invest, put 50 in Bitcoin, 50 in Ethereum. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I have honestly, I don't know which will outpace the other. But the possibility for Ethereum as a layman, the way I look at it is Ethereum is going to be the base layer blockchain tech for a million things from stuff. I don't understand any of this about how it works, but stuff even in like gaming to smart contracts, DeFi. So like getting like a loan from a company where like the cryptocurrency ends up being the money actually. So Ethereum is the layer for all that stuff, everything. So you think about that almost in terms of like energy, in the real world, but like whether it's like solar or gas or whatever, like the energy powers everything else. So Ethereum is powering the next step of all this technology. So yeah, for all I know, I mean, Ethereum could be maybe Ethereum greatly outpaces Bitcoin eventually.
Yeah, the last one I heard talk about it, not like last long time ago, like I listen to podcasts like almost every day. So like literally yesterday, I heard Gary Vee talking about Ethereum and how he feels like it's more useful for like there's more use for it than Bitcoin. Like nobody is really accepting Bitcoin as a payment right now, but there is some places already are accepting Ethereum as a payment, and then also the technology that Bitcoin is built on, he said, is Ethereum. So without Ethereum, there would be no Bitcoin. That's kind of how I understood it. I might be butchering it too.
I think I think that somebody correct me if I'm. I think Bitcoin is its own special thing, and then Ethereum is its own blockchain, and Ethereum and everything is. Bitcoin is like the decentralized like network and ledger, and then Ethereum is similar, but it's the tech where all these platforms are being developed on.
Mhm.
I don't know. My understanding of how to use my can opener is not even great. So
Yeah.
I got no comprehension other than music. Honestly, I'm an educated person. I'm over analytical. I read a lot, but I have no idea honestly how a lot of tech stuff
Yeah.
works or why it works.
Well,
I have no
something
clue.
basic. How does someone buy Bitcoin that's listening to this, or Ethereum? Because I know a lot of people have these Robinhood accounts, and just because you buy Bitcoin on Robinhood doesn't mean you actually own it. You own a position, so it's like more like the stock market of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
But if you buy it on Robinhood, you don't actually own it. Like, what advice would you give, or what from your experience, like where can people actually buy and own cryptocurrency?
You can have it on an exchange, which for most people is an app on their smartphone,
Mhm.
like Coinbase.
Coinbase, yeah.
You can transfer it from, and the exchanges, by and large, especially Coinbase, are very secure.
Yeah.
But you can transfer it to a wallet, which can also be on your smartphone or your computer,
Mhm.
and you can have that on a hardware wallet, so like a USB device.
Mhm.
And that's probably the safest. The only thing with that is you really have to put it somewhere safe and
Don't lose your
don't,
USB.
don't lose and don't mess with it. Yeah,
Mhm.
because that's actually your money. So yeah, no, it's a good way of understanding it is like when you buy even like on Robinhood, if you
Mhm.
buy like a position in gold,
Right.
you don't have the physical gold. You have a position in it.
Exactly.
You can buy physical gold. You can buy bullion gold, but
Mhm.
then that's the thing that has the value. So you can't lose that. Or if
Correct.
that gets destroyed in a fire, then it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's similar.
Yeah, and Coinbase is a very popular platform. I think that's where most people
Yeah.
buy their cryptocurrency. It's super safe route to go.
Yeah.
Um, you also talked about, so stay on the money topic. You talked about paying off your debt, right? I feel like a lot of musicians, one of the biggest struggles is just money in general, like having debt, having bills, and not making enough money. Um, like how has, I don't know if you're debt free now, but like how has paying off your debt hel- helped your confidence in, I guess, making decisions for your music career?
Well, it was helping until the pandemic.
Stupid pandemic ruined everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I was almost out of credit card debt. I was lucky to have some savings, so I worked very hard for. Um, and then I was almost out of credit card debt, and then the pandemic, and then I started
Mhm.
using my credit cards and bleeding my savings. So that stinks, but it's tough to answer because I think that if you're young and you're betting on yourself, and you should bet on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have
No matter what age, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Right. For sure. I'm going to give you a frustrating answer because I feel two ways about this. On the one hand, I believe in being a responsible person and fiscal responsibility.
Mhm.
And so it's your debt, even student loan debt, which is bullshit, what the cost of education is, but still, I mean, you still signed up for it. So, I mean, I don't think you should be defaulting. It's not the right way to do things in life. So that's like my adult side. My musician punk DIY side wishes that I would have declared bankruptcy because what I feel like I could have done. No, I know that's crazy to say, but what I wish in some ways I would have done is I wish I would have just focused on my original music and come what may, and just been like, I don't care about this. I got student loan debt. I've got credit card debt. I'm gonna do whatever it takes to just go play my music. And instead, I got a little bit sucked into the world of being a responsible person and paying it off. And also I was playing shows, and I had been so religious. So I was meeting girls, and I was playing shows. I was on the road, and it was like, this is fun. I'm paying off debt. All that stuff was good, except what was getting neglected was the thing that I really love and care about, which is my original music. So
Mhm.
so it's tough to answer that question, but I think everyone probably has to have the number in their mind and just make their decision about what their priorities are. It's your priority to, by the time you're 30 to have taken a shot with your art, and then, have enough money or enough potential to make money to, buy your house and have your 2.4 kids. If that's your
2.4 kids.
priority, then, I mean, if that's your priority, then that'll be one path with financial responsibility. If that's not your priority, or your time frame is much longer, then it might be something different.
Mhm. As fun it is to be punk rock and use the system, if it's there, right, and you might as well use it. But
Yeah.
as fun as that is, I definitely want to encourage like people, like, get a grip of their finances, can get starting off with debt. Like debt is always a good place to start.
Yeah.
Because that's, as a business, like every artist is a business. So if a business that has debt, it's going to be very challenging to go like to move up and like build financial like stability, because you still have that debt there. And if you're, if you're, I don't know, let's say you have your money in hopefully a high interest savings account, like an Ally account, you're getting 1.8% instead of 0.01% interest. But the second you add in inflation, the second you add in, I don't know, 20% or 29.99% APR on the credit card fees, like saving and investing doesn't make sense if you have massive amount of debt. So I just want to like encourage the students out there, like get a grip on your debt first, and then go all in on things like Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, or whatever it is.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Yeah, for sure. Take care of your debt. Your debt. I mean, if you have a credit card or multiple, like if you're like me and you foolishly have multiple credit. I mean, if you have credit cards that are 27% APR, no matter how much your savings account, no matter how much almost your if you have a Robinhood account, that you're still bleeding money on that interest. So yeah, take care of your debt if you're able to before really going further with savings and investing.
Yeah, for sure. You also talked about, so a new question I like asking, right? It kind of really went the Liberty route more recently. Like the Shane Hazel interview was the first one where I really started kind of going that route. It's kind of a risk I'm taking on the podcast, because I want to, like when I first started out, this was one of the very few music business podcasts out there. And now there's a ton. So now it's like, okay, how do I make myself stand out a little bit differently? And I have this big passion for liberty and like just libertarian philosophies. And so a new question I'm adding in is like, how can we bring more liberty to the music industry? Like what's something that musicians can do to bring more freedom to their music careers?
Wow, that's a great question. Bring more freedom to their music careers. In some ways, the internet is, the democratization of music and content. There is an kind of inherent freedom to that. I make a song, or somebody writes something, they can put it out on Medium, or you just put it out on SoundCloud or DistroKid, get it on Spotify. So there is kind of that freedom baked into it. It's tough to know. It's tough to know what's funny is that it's not, there's still indie labels, and there's still obviously the big record labels. I wonder what I would do. If I'm lucky enough to get to the point where I would have a chance to get on into a label or a bigger label. I wonder how I'll make that decision, how I'll navigate that, because just having an understanding of the power you can have if you get to a certain point doing it yourself, and versus the amount of control and freedom you might be giving up to a record label. That dynamic is still there, and so how to work that and have leverage in your favor with your platforms of choice. That's a pretty important thing. And then I also think that even from a standpoint of like DIY marketing, or whether it's Facebook and Instagram ads and so forth, that's probably an important. It's almost like a liberty thing. Is how do I economically make my choices to put my content out there and get it in front of people.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just thought of a kind of interesting analogy. So because what you said, like being in the music industry, right? It's kind of already like punk rock and very like freedom, like choosing your own path. Like I'm writing my music, I'm putting my music out there. I own my music. This is my thing. It's kind of like how America started, right? And then all of a sudden we start giving up more and more liberties as it started getting bigger and growing. So like as a musician's career grows and gets bigger, like, oh, here's a little piece of publishing for a publisher. Here's a little piece of songwriting here. Oh yeah, you want my entire masters? Like here's my masters. Like you lose more and more freedom and control as your music career grows.
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny because I was so trained and fantasized about the record label model. Like I'll make it on label and have a huge label deal. And so I don't know. I like to project success in life. I think you should, kids at home. So you don't necessarily know what, what level of success it might be, but I think you should believe in yourself and your potential. So I think I'll get to that point eventually. I don't know what it'll look like, and I'm actually not sure what decision I would make as far as going with a record label or just staying in the DIY mode, because you do have that total freedom. I'm totally giving a boring answer, but I think everybody has to. I think being informed is probably your best weapon. Just the more you know, and the more empowered you'll be, basically.
Yeah, I just had Benny Pugh on the podcast. Awesome podcast, amazing guest, like really nice guy, super down to earth. But like I asked him a question I asked him, kind of like my idea that I have is the bad deals that musicians sign with the record labels. The only reason they keep putting these deals out is, one, because musicians keep signing them. Two, is they're not really challenging anything on them, right? And labels always going to present their most ideal scenario first.
Yeah.
So then the artist has to present their most ideal scenario and figure out where you can meet in the middle.
Right.
And one thing I'm trying to advocate artists to fight for is some way of at least getting their masters back. Whether it's once the advance is paid off, they get it back, or it's a lease for a certain amount of time, and when that time is up, it gets back, or there is a buyout option, like once, after 5 years or after 10 years, I have first dibs on my masters, and the cost to me, because it's my masters, is this price. So like not someone like Scooter Braun can swoop in all of a sudden and throw in all this money. Like, if I can already get it at this low price because it's my masters, I should be able to buy it back at that price first before someone comes waving, giant paycheck.
Yeah. Funny enough, I can't believe you just mentioned that name. I met Scooter Braun. My dad briefly had a company that was making like cell phone cases and products, and they were in business together years ago. So
wow.
I actually remember meeting him. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, I was thinking about that example because of the whole like Taylor Swift scenario, like her trying to fight for her masters and everything.
Yeah, I mean Prince or who am I thinking of? Michael Jackson's masters. There've been this happened a lot with some big musicians. Like who owns the rights is a big deal and complicated, unfortunately.
Yeah, but try to fight for your masters, and the more of a business you build, like the more revenue you have, the easier that negotiation is going to be. If you like an artist is bringing nothing to the table and it's like their first ever album and they were discovered over like a YouTube cover or something, they're probably gonna get the worst deal possible. But if it's like someone like you're already like, even though you're not making, I don't know what you make, but even though it's like in the deep six figures, millions, even though it's not there yet, you still know what you're making, right? You're making music full time. You're a full time musician, and it's like, a label is going to have to bring at least something better than that to the table because you're already doing what you love. Yeah. So it's like, how are they going to make you doing what you love better than it is now?
Yeah, I agree. And I'd be more interested in signing with an indie label that had had understanding that, we're not the old model of, 2 years in an expensive studio and expensive music videos. Yeah. And then here's your 1 or 2 big things. That model is dead now.
Right.
I mean, the age of TikTok, like you just like make a fun video and put it out there and gets 1 million views. Like, right. You know what I mean? Like, like that's the new age is I think the quality matters as much as ever. Absolutely. But it is about volume also, and like speed of content, because there's competition for eyeballs. Mm-hmm. So a lot of labels don't understand that yet. A lot of labels are still on the old model.
Still in the Stone Age.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any favorite like musicians that are content creators that are doing something that's not music, like just something else to help build their brand?
Oh man, I should have been prepped on phenomenal questions. I can't think. No,
it's just a random thought I had.
No, I can't think of one off the top of my head. I think most of my favorite musicians are, they're getting old. No, I mean my new favorite musicians, like bands like the 1975 or Phoebe Bridgers. They've either pushed their content to 2021 or I'm not aware that they're doing any other.
1975 just announced they canceled all their tour dates for this year, right?
I saw that, and somebody harassed me on Twitter for saying I literally said something like, I'm just very disappointed because I love the 1975. And then I got some Twitter hate for like, don't you understand we're in a pandemic? Yes. I understand, but I mean, a good question though. I wonder if they're going to be the only ones, or if it'll. I hope not, because I was looking forward to, at least second half of 2021 going to some concerts. I can't imagine that every band is going to blanket cancel all of 2021. That seems like so much revenue.
I don't see that happening. There's news out there now of like concerts coming back in the fall.
Okay. Yeah.
Some's optimistic as coming back as early as the summer.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it should come back sooner, but
I think summer makes sense, optimistically.
Yeah.
Yeah. We gotta get back to living eventually. We're gonna be by June we'll be 6 months into having a vaccine. So maybe that's optimistic, but
yeah, I can go to a giant rabbit hole. Maybe if we chat one day about off the record the whole vaccine and Ticketmaster and all those talks that are going on right now.
Yeah.
But let me throw in a couple of fun questions
Sure.
here to wrap up. What was the first concert you've ever been to, or first memorable concert you've ever been to?
Oasis. I was
sick.
13 or 14. Yeah. Oasis, my favorite band, definitely favorite 90s band. I'm a big like British rock and roll fan, UK bands and stuff. So yeah, it was in Camden, New Jersey.
Okay.
It was at what was then called the Continental Airlines Arena, where the Brooklyn Nets, then the New Jersey Nets played at. And yeah, it was awesome.
Very cool. That's a good first one. I love it.
Fun one.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Best advice I've ever gotten from a girl who I met in Pennsylvania when a lot of stuff had happened at the same time, and I'd gotten out of the church I grew up with, and my folks had split up, and so my life was like, pretty depressed. And I met this girl randomly, and she was a little bit older than me, and she explained to me the value of traveling and seeing the world, and also of going to college, which I wasn't planning on doing. And she sold me on it, and I eventually I did, and yeah, it changed my life. So
awesome. I love that. And one just a real quick disclaimer to the audience. You mentioned the church a few times. The reason I didn't go that direction, because I feel like you did a podcast when I was kind of doing my research on it, on you. I think it was like a religious podcast where you guys went really deep on that.
Yeah.
And that guy was way more well versed on those topics than I am. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna throw a link, or I'm just gonna embed that video in the show notes for this episode if someone wants to see that. But really interesting story about being in Jehovah's Witnesses and everything that came with that, and fighting like out of that religion and everything. Fascinating story.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. No, a lot of my life has been defined by that, and then leaving it and finding out what do I believe after being in the church. And that song, I wrote a song actually about that experience called Dusk on my album, and it's about the girl who I met, and taking a trip, and then just seeing the world in a new way after leaving the church.
I guess one question I'll ask on that: what's the best thing that's happened since leaving?
Wow, that's tough. Probably making new friends through going to college and through going to Hampshire. So my best friends in the world are from there. And then also a best friend who I met named Jessica in Piano Bar, actually in Arizona. And we're all super close to this day. So making new friends. And, I lost most of my friends in leaving the church, which unfortunately happens a lot when you leave a religion like that. So making new friends and connections, and realizing that I still had it in me to be human again, and and love again, and make connections and all that kind of shit.
That's awesome. I love it. What are the books, documentaries, or podcasts? It doesn't have to be all three, but what are the ones that you share with people the most?
Ooh, books, documentaries, podcasts. Books, Freedom, Jonathan Franzen, amazing writer, favorite writer. Otessa Moshfegh, I'm not sure how to say her last name. Great writer. Those are my two favorite recent authors. Anything by her. Shows. Wow. So many during the pandemic. Where to start? I mean, Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, 90s lover. So Star Trek Next Generation for the nerds out there. The X-Files for the folks there. Love the X-Files.
I haven't heard X-Files in a long time.
X-Files. I'm watching all over again. Incredible show. Amazing. This year too, I watched The Crown. I watched Deadwood, HBO. Freaking unbelievable show. I'm trying to think what else. I'm missing a big one. It's on the tip of my tongue. Twin Peaks. Awesome show. Twin Peaks. Ever watch Twin Peaks?
I have not. No.
Crazy show, man.
Yeah.
If you like mind-bending shows, David Lynch, amazing. The first couple seasons from the 1991, and then the remake on Showtime or Stars in like a few years ago. But yeah, incredible show.
Yeah,
like
very cool.
Total mindfuck.
I just finished The Mandalorian.
I finished The Mandalorian. Yeah,
yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah,
I love that ending. I don't want to give a spoiler, but it, all the old school Star Wars fan, they probably already watched it by this time. But if someone has watched the original Star Wars, you'll be very, very happy when it's all over.
Yeah, I like The Mandalorian. I'm actually, the Star Wars movies, except for Rogue One, I didn't particularly care for, because I'm definitely more old school. But I'm more excited for the TV shows and the Boba Fett spinoff.
Yeah,
I'm pretty excited for.
Can't wait for all that.
That should be fun.
You mentioned Breaking Bad, so I'm about to watch it for the third time. I love that show. Have you watched Better Call Saul?
I love Better Call Saul.
So good.
Yeah,
I think I almost like it better, but it can't exist without Breaking Bad. So you need Breaking Bad for Better Call Saul.
You need Breaking Bad to set it up. Yeah, but it's so good. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, I love that show.
I would marry Kim. I love every character. Incredible.
Yeah, such a good show. Yeah, and then we just started the new season of Cobra Kai.
I haven't watched Cobra Kai yet.
Oh, it's good. Have you watched any of them?
No.
Oh, it's good. Are you a fan of Karate Kid?
Yes, I am a fan of the Karate Kid. Yeah,
it's stupid and cheesy, but I don't know, since you love stuff from the 80s and 90s, it's just it's just kind of lighthearted and just something stupid to watch that if you don't want to watch anything serious, especially with all the crap going on in the world right now.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right up my alley. I'll check it out.
You have to let me know what you think.
Sweet.
And then I kind of asked this question already, but what is something that you would like to change, or would we like to see change in our industry?
Well, that's a tough one. Well, we talked about streaming payouts and how to make it so that more artists, it's not going to be every artist, because not everybody, if I'm a horrible painter. If I tried to, I made a painting, please buy it. No one should buy it because it freaking sucks. So it's not everybody, but to bring more people into the pie, and to make the pie bigger. The pie for music was bigger before streaming and downloading, which is the sad truth. Now, maybe it'll grow again, maybe it won't. It's still a big pie, don't get me wrong, but I mean, smaller than video games, smaller than smaller than it's taken. I feel like music in some ways, okay, if I could change, to get super meta, if I could change one thing, I would love to see music two things. Okay, so I would love to see music and whether it's rock or hip hop or whatever, I would love to see it have even a little bit more of a cultural position comparative to what it used to. But that's selfish to me, and things come and go. So I mean, it's still important, but I think in some ways it's been a little bit eclipsed by, it used to be the thing, rock stars, were overwhelming, and now they're just whelming, compared to a YouTube star, or somebody streaming on Twitch with 10 million followers. That's weirdly enough, that's almost a bigger thing right now. Yeah. I can't wrap my head around that, but that's the one thing. And then the other thing is, I would love to see, if we're talking about music and musicianship, I would love to see more bands and more artists not be afraid of learning the nuts and bolts of music and music theory, even just basics of it, and getting to the point where they weren't just reliant on the technology, which is wonderful. I mean, what you can do on Ableton or whatever else with loops and synths, it's incredible. But you do hear a lot of stuff, especially I have more knowledge the rock world than any other genre, but in the indie rock world, I think my criticism is that I hear a lot of music which is fine. It's fine. It's okay. It's not bad. And it sounds polished on Spotify playlists, but it's just not innovative. It's not very interesting. And in terms of like the textures, the sounds, it's everything's good, everything's polished. But in terms of what's happening, like chord progressions, chord changes, interesting switches from major to minor to augmented, the stuff that you can do with music is almost infinite how much stuff you can do with it. And we are doing like this with it right now in most popular music. I think hip hop is way more interesting by and large than what's happening in rock, unfortunately, in indie. To give you a long answer, I think singer songwriter, great stuff happening there. But like bands, there's not a lot of rock bands that are pushing the envelope.
No.
And if anything, I think we've gone a little bit backwards. It's tough to compare things to like the heyday of like Queen or like Led Zeppelin or whatever. And that's like, the gold standard for a lot of musicians. But still, like, it doesn't seem like we're pushing towards, trying to be kind of big and innovative also in rock and roll and indie. It seems like there's not much of an appetite for that. It's more playlist friendly, workout friendly, synth on my laptop kind of music. And I'm bored with it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like a lot of music, especially in rock music, like they're just trying to follow a formula that will get them on playlists, that will get them on streams. And here's the secret: what will get you on streams, what will get you on playlists? Be different, be better, be unique, like stand out. Because if you can stand out, that's how you're gonna get on these playlists. And I don't know, I'm kind of still waiting for rock and roll and punk rock to make its resurgence.
Yeah, punk rock.
And always want to stick it to the man, and there's no better time in history, like really our history, to stick it to the man than right now. So I'm waiting for the great rock bands to come out of this time.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of anger in 2021. I think a lot of righteous rage is gonna come out in rock and hip hop in 2021. I think. Yeah.
So one last question I'll ask you before I'll ask you the question I ask everyone. All the fun and all the magic happens on the road. What is something that you like to do when you're on the road, or a fun story from the road?
I'm looking forward to playing on the street without a mask and without people having to wear masks or walk around you. So I'm looking forward to setting up and talking to people and maybe like interviewing people for YouTube or Instagram, and then playing in different cities that I haven't done before, like New York or Seattle. That would be fun. I'd like to have the chance to do that this year if I can.
Awesome. If you make your way to Florida, you have to reach out. But
man, for sure.
Not many reasons to come to Florida for music, sadly. But you should definitely consider New Orleans on your way.
I've never been to New Orleans. Would love to.
It's amazing, especially since you're open to playing open mics and street performing. Like, really amazing opportunities out there for that.
Cool. No, I'd love to, for sure.
What's the best way for people to connect with you? Like, where can they find your website, your new album, and what social media platforms do you hang out on? Yeah,
they can find me on website is wesleydavidmusic.com. My Instagram is just at wesleydavidmusic, and my Twitter I'm about to change to it's Wesley David. So whenever this comes out, it's Wesley David on Twitter.
Awesome. And then the question, no, go ahead.
That's all. Sorry.
Cool. And then the question I ask everyone at the end is, what's your definition of making it?
Man, that's a great question. To try to make it brief. I grew up, I think, with a fantasy of trying to get to the point that my favorite bands were at, and those bands were so huge. I mean, compared to everything that the scale of where we are now with what's changed in the industry. So I'm trying to redefine that, to be honest with you. I'm trying to not look at it in terms of exactly how many numbers 3 years from now or 5 years from now do I have X amount of followers on Instagram or whatever. I'm trying to not see it that way. I'm trying to more shift to viewing it like, of course I'm an ambitious person, and I want the best outcome I can have, and that would be wonderful and very gratifying. I'm trying to concentrate more on the process of what can I do today. I'm trying to grow a following. I have ideas about music and social media culture. I'm trying to, what can I do today to express that, and just trust that it's going to lead to something that'll be very fulfilling, rather than say, well, if I don't have 500,000 followers in a year or two, then I'm a failure. My life is over or something.
Live the life you love.